Am I audible now? Okay, amazing. So I have a mammoth task of covering 45 minutes, 7 of us, and we have the last panel, of course, for the day, and a very, very interesting one. I'll just take a moment to explain what we are at today for the next 45 minutes. The topic for our panel is the evolving meaning of influence. And what does influencing or influencer really mean today when information is too cluttered, abundant, and trust is rare, right? And if I was to sum up in this famous quote from the book Influence, which I'm sure a bunch of us would have read, that influence is not about the ability to manipulate, but it's a lot about understanding what drives the user. And that itself is convoluted because while the introduction was happening, some feel that it's about that viral reel, some feel that it's a podcast, some feel that it's still the film which is running in the theaters. But what it really means when it comes to different touch points and how are marketers solving it, in the next 45 minutes we'll try to cover it. We almost have a roti kapda makan kind of a panel today with us. Why I say that is because we have a brand which is India Gate, which is chawal, the staples. We have water, we have Bisleri, we have Kisht in the form of finance, funding everything and the dreams of our life. We of course have media, we have kapda in the form of Uniqlo, and we of course have a little bit of snacking and festivities happening.
Premium chocolates.
Yes, yeah, it is. So it would be very interesting to see how this goes around. And with that, I'll just open up the panel. We'll go with what does influence or influencer, whatever you want to take, means in your industry, personally to you as a marketer, and also as a relation to the industries that you operate in. I'll begin with you, Kunal. Yeah.
Sure. So I think, at the end of the day as brands, we all want to make a meaningful difference in our consumers' lives, right? And we're either trying to get them buy us or to get them consider us. And in that whole journey, I think the fundamentals still remain the same, be whatever time, right? So I think one thing which is very critical for us as brands is to remain consistent in the choice of our influencers. So be it celebrities, be it in today's parlance, influencers. I think it is important for brands to be conscious of what choices they are making for people who will carry the message of the brand, so that we are consistent in terms of the ethos of the brand. So I think that's one. The other piece that I feel, which is very clear, that the content is still the king, right? So the way, our influencers carry the message and the kind of content that we create, that is what will win the hearts of consumers. So I think two fundamental premises that I want to start with when I talk about influence.
Yeah. What about you, Manis?
Thank you. So I would kind of say that the media created the influencer, and the evolution of media has actually created different kinds of influencers as the time goes by. So now with social media, where the velocity is more frantic, you have a bunch of influencers. When the velocity was not so frantic, there were lesser influencers. That's the first discussion on influencers. The other influencer perspective is the difference between a brand ambassador and the brand influencer.
Yes.
And the role that they play in the lifestyle and the life cycle of a brand. And from my personal perspective, influencers is Papi Pet Ka Sawal. As a person who runs a digital agency, if I don't make money from influencers, I don't know where to make money from, because media doesn't allow me to make money anymore.
So I think in fashion, influencer or influencing has been there since we were born, right?
Yeah.
From our mothers to our siblings to our friends, everybody has in some ways influenced our fashion. So even when we are looking at the category, it's about how and who we choose that can influence the choice and change the perception of what we offer as a brand. And in fashion, it's actually quite easy, right? You look at somebody, you look at your friend, you like what they're wearing, you ask your colleague will tell you about a brand that they came across. So everybody is a fashion influencer, to be honest. Everybody is recommending something. People are asking and sending WhatsApp messages when they're at a shop. Should I buy this? Should I not? Yeah. So I think in fashion, influencers are people itself.
It's not larger
And
than life.
It's not larger than life. It's your everyday people, it's your friends, it's your colleagues, it's your neighbor, it's somebody you see walk on the road and you're just inspired by what they have bought. And and that's where we as a lifewear brand come in. Because we feel that we are impacting the lives of the people through clothes. And how do we tap into this authentic, customer voices and make that as the voice of influence?
Yeah, Shweta, how about you? That's a very interesting category as well because it's torn. Too much influencing and influencing happening.
Right. So in finance specifically as a lending provider, for us influence and influencer means somebody who can demystify the concept of money. Money is one of the biggest stressors in life, right? People lose sleep over money. People lose sleep when they are in debt. So for us specifically, influence and influencer means somebody who can demystify money, who can kind of tell them that you don't have to lose your sleep over money. Here's how you manage your money. And if you are in debt, there are ways to manage this in a very healthy way, right? So influencers, we use influencers mainly towards education. Yeah, so demystifying, educating the customer, building that awareness about managing credit, managing loans, and basically remove the, the idea that money is a stressor.
Okay, yeah. Tushar, how about you? We are talking the extremely massy category, huge TAM. How does that play for you?
Right. If I were to just go back to the basics,
Yes.
the role of a marketer is to tell a story. Now today as a marketer, I have many stories to tell, right? Of course, I have my mainline campaign and Deepika Padukone is a brand ambassador, right? And that is telling a story which is drink it up to the consumers, which is about all making hydration and water cool. But then I go to my sports marketing program where we've partnered with many sports like marathon, cricket, football and so on and so on. Now I want to tell a story of ISL to the consumers and I want to tell it in a very entertaining way that we've kind of partnered with 6 ISL teams. So I get Shahid Kapoor as an influencer and I tell their story. So it's a finite time-bound campaign which is specifically talking about that story itself. Then, for example, I have Calcutta Marathon happening and I get Mary Com as an influencer where she runs in the Calcutta Marathon for us, right? So as a brand, we have multiple conversations with our consumers and what the influencers help us to do is to shape those multiple conversations and get the virality on those conversations as well and tell the story in a more impactful manner. So that's where I have the divide for an endorser as an influencer. And also when we look at our consumers today, especially the Gen Z consumer, they are very digitally native. So influencer marketing also helps in the consumption of that media where you can reach out today in a moment to your consumers and that's why influencers come in as well.
There's the bifurcation of the target group and which influencers are impacting where.
So it's storytelling in the moment. That's what influencer marketing is.
Yeah. Zohar, what about you?
So primary job of marketing is to change behavior and influence and influencers come handy for that. Influencers and see as the media scenario is evolving, we are moving more from interrupt marketing, which was your 30-seconder coming in between of your program, to right now content or advertising which is ingrained in the content itself. So more permissive marketing. So content becomes very impromptu, has to be as he said that it has to be more entertaining first and has to be in the go. So I'll tell you the way we worked on TikTok is of course, we have a content, we have a master content, everything. But at the same time, Gen Z youth is the biggest part of the population, 33%, 50% of the India consumer is below 33 years of age. They want content, more social, 2 hours a day. So we are creating content which is moment marketing, which is created by guys on the streets, which is entertaining first and the brand comes along with it. And hence, you get organically 500,000, 100,000, 200,000 views on, and the cost of creating this content is not much. Second thing, as we said that a brand has multiple faces. For example, Nutella. Nutella, we have Ranveer Singh, which is the face of the brand. But when we need to build brand credentials, when we need to go seasonal, we go with chefs like Vikas Khanna, we go with other chefs so that you are able to connect with the target audience. Last part, what I would say is that in the entire, if you remember the Porter's 5 Forces model, we had a barrier to entry. The entire influencer ecosystem has given cohorts to you that you can charge on geography, consumers, right demographics, right perception, right thought processes, that you can break in the clutter and enter in the ecosystem really well.
I think the top of the mind that you're talking about is the coexistence of user-generated content and also the big brand ambassadors. Let's shake up things a little. I think you all have sufficiently warmed up in terms of giving the idea about influence as a definition. It's the last panel of the day, so let's have a little bit of CMO wars. I would love to know, and I'm sure the audience really would want to, the importance that we are giving to influencers and the micro-influencers and the user-generated content. And of course, while we were having our pre-chats, we talked about the OG definition of influencers. I would want any of you to jump in, but let's talk brand ambassadors, the celebrities, or the influencers. What works? Or is it a and, is it a or? Do we even need either of them? Because we have brands which are talking to India 1, India 2 and India 3, different psychographics. So I would love for you to jump in no linear fashion. Yeah.
I'll start. See, brand ambassadors are a good way of increasing Tom's Pond.
Yes.
It's the quickest way to get the top of mind awareness. But and it gives you a easy way of creating the mind memory. So those are, and of course we have limited budgets, business has become demanding, you need to have a quick turnaround, and hence brand ambassadors are also relevant in current times. But if you want to drive different agendas, if you want to drive carriers like the carriers on Nutella, or you want to do something else, tell a story on different flavors on Tic Tac, or tell about festivals with Ritik or any other celeb, you need to play it to the context of the funnel which is there.
Yeah.
And you have to be authentic. You can't, is the consumer, and you would have seen an influencer content which is there. If it's not authentic, it will not, the view through rate will never come in. So the more you're authentic, more imperfections are there, more empathy is there, the more the content will spread better.
Got it. I think, Manas, you have something to add for the run?
Sure. I'm going to stick to my media front, right?
Yes, let's do that.
I'm championing that. So, media brands technically grew only on the people who featured on the media brands, right? For example, in Discovery Channel, people who flew F-16s are the guys who spoke on Discovery Channel. The people who piloted the SR-71, and it kind of spawned an entire sub-channel from Discovery called Wings, right? So those were the original, to use that term, original influencers. Jane Goodall on National Geographic was the person who made National Geographic the channel that it became, right? So the process of a brand ambassador, paid or unpaid, original or outside, or internal or external, is really the discussion that we have in terms of what is good for the brand, correct? If I create my own content channel, even if I'm a non-media brand, and if I have people in the content channel talking about what I do for a living, is that the best influencer that I can possibly get? Is my amount of money, and finally we all become chief Excel operators, is that amount of money better utilized when I create internal influencers versus external influencers, right? If you're talking about the Skoda Deccan Beats example, right, where the top 4 singers from the south of India spoke about Skoda cars. They didn't know anything about cars, but they said we sat in the car for 6 hours a day because we were traveling all across the country, and it was a very comfortable car. That's all the endorsement that the brand required. And by the way, they said, listen to my music while you're in the car. That's the idea of an influencer kind of dovetailing with the brand in itself.
Yeah. I think what you're also saying is that media has a role to play. It's also a lot about the push and the budgets. Yeah. The UGC and brand ambassador is fine, but it really comes to that. Yeah, if I was to come to Nidhi, to you, how does it operate in a category like yours, which is one, very functional, you're also trying to create a new category and the whole global, local mix also comes into play. What matters, the ambassador or the influence?
So I think both play a role, and it just boils down to what exactly is the business goal.
Yeah.
Ambassadors, like was mentioned earlier, help in your tom and your spont. So you need that quick awareness, and if you need that quick recognition of the brand, you need to go after ambassadors, because they do give you that sort of reach, which, to be honest, a lot of actually not just reach, but also that credibility and
Yes.
trust, because ambassadors just generally have it's a little stronger trust than the influencers. And that's when, even as brands, you have to see that how the values that you have with an ambassador matches the value of the brand. Whereas when you go down the funnel of, say, consideration and creating relevance, that's when you have to go to influencers. Because even we as a brand, like in clothing, we have different products. We're appealing to somebody who is 45-year-old
Yeah.
CEO walking into and wants to buy formal wear, as opposed to a 15-year-old teenager who wants to buy graphic t-shirts. I cannot appeal that through one person. So I have to find influencers. I have to find someone who goes to who's appealing to the Gen Z and is active on Snap. And I have to find someone who maybe is active on LinkedIn. So it's not just the choice of influencer, but it's also the choice of platform.
Fair.
And and hence stemming from that, what is the content that you eventually also decide. So these are the three things that you choose, and it all sort of plays back into what exactly you want, for the brand.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, Shweta and Tushar, but I'll just very quickly take up you, Kunal, on this one. Given India Gate, a very important essential category, there's tons of data available from syndicated, customized, all those tracks, right? What role does that have to play in terms of your influencer strategy? How are your conversations with your marketing team like, which is data driven, or is it more gut pop culture? Does it even have any relevance, the latter?
I don't think we can live without each other in terms
Yeah.
of data as well as pop culture, right? I think we do use data a lot extensively from a strategic standpoint. Let me give you a case in point.
That
As a
would be great.
brand, I mean, rice, we know, is an all-pervasive center of plate dish in India, right? But we're largely in the business of basmati, right? But when I look at basmati, it's consumed very differently in different parts of the country, and we keep hearing consumers how they talk about, So research gives us a lot of that data. So when we look at South as a market, for example, just taking a case in point, and I'll give you a counter example. Their basmati is typically what people use at home only to cook biryani, right? And as a brand, we enjoy, 70% plus market share. So where's our share of growth in that market? So that's where we started picking up from consumer listening in terms of how people are using basmati at home. We picked up that in metros, people who are moving away from their hometowns in, say, a Mysore into a Bangalore, have started using basmati for some of their South Indian dishes, like, lemon rice, coconut rice. So we started using an influencer strategy which had credibility with, local chefs to start nudging and placing our product there and starting driving that usage. Now that's a very different strategy from,
altogether.
a similar thing in West, for example. In West, interesting research which told us that as a brand, you're like Shah Rukh Khan who waves from the distance, and not like Mr. Amitabh Bachchan who sits across you in KBC. So those kind of insights tell you where you need to take the brand, what kind of influencers you need to really choose to kind of, solve for your brand and business objectives. So I think that's just to give you a crux of how we do look at data.
It's essentially saying that yes, the old school inside cohorts still matter than the noise around pop culture when it comes to your category. I'll come to you, Shweta. We were having this interesting conversation just yesterday and a little bit before that. Your category has a lot of authenticity checks when it comes to influencing. What's your take there? Because not everyone can be an influencer. There's a lot of registration from SEBI, all of that involved. So with all that governance in play, how is your choice of a brand ambassador and influencer look like?
So fintech typically is under a lot of scrutiny, especially over the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
When we started off, when we launched Kish, we had the wherewithal to choose influencers, and there was no guideline in place in terms of choosing influencers. Of late, especially over the last 18 months, there has been heavy regulation from RBI. Influencers, all of them are required to have a certification from SEBI, and a bunch of whole bunch of other certifications that finance influencers need to carry to even, talk about a particular product. So one way around, we use finance influencers heavily, but one way that we've found around this problem is to use other categories of influencers.
Okay.
Where-
Can you give an example there?
Yeah, so we talk about travel expenses, home decor expenses, home renovation, wedding expenses, education, car loans, home loans.
Yeah.
So we started kind of micro segmenting each of these categories and using influencers in those categories rather than using finance influencers like a chartered accountant, somebody who talks about money. We started using these categories of influencers to make money a little more relatable. So we used a wedding planner to say, hey, this is how you budget. We used, influencers around travel who said, hey, this is how you plan your travel on a budget. So we started using influencers around those categories.
Understood.
And that's how we kind of circumvented this issue.
Got it. Tushar, give us some tea around how you are going by. You mentioned about a bunch of campaigns, of course, but and we were talking a lot about performance marketing and the pull-push approach in terms of choices of the either categories of influence. How has your experience been with Distillery?
Now, if I were to go back to what a celebrity endorser does to me, it's about consistency across medium through the year. So if I have Deepika Padukone as my brand ambassador, that is the face which goes on my packaging. That is the face goes on hundreds of thousands of trade outlets as well as the dealer boards, right? So then what that brings is that you need that consistent face. So that is required. The influencers are an and to that. Prima facie, it amplifies and also talks about different stories. So, for example, when we launched a Drink It Up campaign with Deepika Padukone, we ended it with a flip. We wanted people to associate the flip with the brand. So then we went with an influencer campaign which had the likes of Tripti Dimri even doing the flip, and we had 100 micro influencers doing the flip. Now we own the flip.
Now you own the flip.
So much that Virat Kohli flipped some other brand and he didn't land and it got attributed to Bisleri. So that happened as well. Then also what happens is that there is authenticity in an influencer story as well. So there is this girl called Kamya Karthikeyan. She has just now climbed 7 of the highest peaks in all the continents. So we had her as an influencer, her story as an influencer for Vedika, one of our brands which comes from the Himalayas as well, and which talks about a life full of altitude.
Yeah.
So that was a classic synergy fit, where the influencer story is added to the brand story as well, and it was a perfect fit.
Understood. So while we're talking about influencers and we covered the part on what it means to you, we covered how they are different from the big celebrities. You can't have these two words very far away, which is influencers and communities. And this discussion goes on and on where we talk about target groups in our marketing meetings, and then everyone says, vibe your tribe and get your community. There's a curly hair community, there's a plant-based protein community. These micro communities that we're talking about. How is that distance that you travel? What communities are you after? How are you trying to talk to them with the right kind of content? How you talked about authenticity, Tushar, and how do you test the authenticity of the content that you're really planting out to attract the right kind of community? Anyone who wants to just jump in there?
Can I?
For sure, yes.
Media, right.
Media, yes, has to go first.
Okay, so two things. One, it is now, we've got fintech, but there's a lot of martech, which allows me to figure out exactly what is the community doing and what is the depth of the community, what's the breadth of the community, and what's the seriousness of the community that's going to be, and you can judge that, right? So therefore, there it's a matter of figuring out which horse to ride.
Which wants to ride, yeah?
Correct. That's a simple one. I mean, from our perspective, with smart usage of martech, that's a simple one. The other interesting discussion is where can you actually do this word disruption is now old-fashioned a little bit, but it's still a very interesting word in our life, right? can you use community X to talk about product Y? And that's really where the imagination works and comes into play, right? And that's the disruptive side of this entire ecosystem, where there are individuals, there are small groups, large groups, and macro groups. And even within individuals, there are the micro blah, 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 right?
Yes.
So what is the permutation combination that you will use to figure out how to get the requisite depth of communication for your brand? Right? So it's a beautiful
Iterative
mathematical
process.
solution.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is an iterative process. It can go as deep as you want to like funnel down, but does it matter for all brands, which is finding community, or are we also saying that we are playing with brands which could appeal to all? We had interesting conversations on Uniqlo there.
Yeah, so Uniqlo, we have the philosophy which we say lifewear, and by that we mean that we make products which make life better.
Yeah.
And when we say we make life better, it doesn't matter who you are. It can be from a baby to an 80-year-old. And when we then are finding community, I think it's more about it's not so much about finding community, but it's more so much about finding what exactly is the life problem that we are solving. So for example, we have our non-iron shirts, which are wrinkle-free shirts.
Yeah.
So by nature of the shirt, they will appeal to people who go to work or who travel a lot. Or we have heat tech, which is thermals, which by nature of the product appeal to travelers, or will appeal to people who stay in cold in cold climate. So it's more to find out that what exactly is the
cases.
customer
Yeah.
problem that we are trying to solve, and then who is it that we can then hence collaborate with, who will talk about this problem and then say how Lifewear is solving for it, or how Uniqlo is stepping in and making their life better. So that's the way we play.
So you have something from your product.
So, if brands are strong, communities automatically come in. And I'll give you an example of World Nutella Day, which is 5th February. It was started in US by an influencer called Sara Rosso. And it's a global community right now.
Yeah.
So much that even before, when we were associated with Ranveer Singh used to post content on World Nutella Day celebrating himself, and he started building the community on his own because he was an avid Nutella lover. So this is how I believe there's the fandom of the product itself creates community, and we leverage it. I would say with minimal spends, we go to 30-40 million consumers as completed views on World Nutella Day. With minuscule spend, what we do, because the fandom is there, we just activate that particular fandom. So that particular thing, if the product is strong, you are able to leverage it much stronger, and you are able to continue to build communities over a period of time.
I will ask a little bit of a sensitive question because you're talking about fandom. Let's talk about the matching of ethos of brand ambassadors and the way we go about choosing the brand ambassadors and influencers. How important is it for you as a brand? Like, do you go after fans of your product when you choose them? Or not?
Yeah, so I'll take this
Yeah.
because we've recently onboarded Sachin Tendulkar as our brand ambassador, and it will kind of allude to your previous question also. We chose Sachin because we wanted somebody who had a pervasive persona across age groups. Even though typically we are targeting a slightly younger audience, all our kind of market research, when we did a testing, the kind of results that emerged were very different. But then the investors and some of us sat down together and said, if we want a mass face that embodies trust, then when we have the Amitabh Bachchans, the SRKs of the world, of course Sachin. So we wanted somebody who embodies trust. And so we got him on board. So in terms of getting that big face, that helps you carry forward the company's ethos. We wanted to stand for trust, and we got Sachin Tendulkar who embodies trust. But when we look at other categories, right? So there is a hero content, which the brand ambassador brings to the table. And then there is surround content, which all the other influencers do for you.
And it together works.
And in tandem, these two categories, the brand ambassador who is also an influencer, the influencer also is a brand ambassador on some level. When they work in sync, that's where the magic happens. You can't rely on one. There is Sachin who does his job, that makes Kish the household name. But then there are a whole bunch of influencers across categories who make the brand relatable.
Yeah.
So that's the role that both these parties play.
Tushar, you and Kunal, what do you have to say on the fandom theory?
I mean, I'll give a very different example, because we often talk about influencers on a digital stage, right?
Yeah.
Influencer to me is also a bit of moment marketing. Now, when we look at South India, especially for a mass brand, South India sort of has a different ethos when it comes to in the terms of the communication that you want to go. India is made of many Indias, like they say. So one big thing about fandom in South India is movies. When movies release, especially, and movie stars are cult icons like Rajnikant, you go there, it's a different phenomenon. It's like a religious festival. So what we started to do in the South is to tie up with all the movies over there for limited edition packs. So from a Rajnikant to a Vijay Sethupathi to the Vijay Thalapathy, we've got all of their movies come in our pack. We've got RRR, we've got Jailer, we've got everything. And we do digital content also. At that point of time, when the movie is coming out, that entire community, that entire fandom gets activated for the brand. And I'll tell you an example. For example, if you go to a retail store and you will keep a POSM material, 2 days it disappears. We've seen the POSM material for our limited edition packs be there for 2 months. That's the power of influence when you come to at that point, and that's how you activate fandom.
Fair? Yeah?
So if
Kunal,
I may
what
just
about
add,
you?
I mean, just a recent example of what we did, and we wanted to reveal our new packaging to our consumers. And like Tushar rightly said, there are only 2 things in India which span across north to south, which is cricket and movies, right? And we said, in a boring category like ours, staples is not very low involvement. We said, how do we get this news out in an exciting manner? And we said movies is the way to do it, and we did it through a campaign which revealed the new packs like a movie launch. So we said, Fatega poster niklega star, and we came out with our new pack reveal through outdoor and through influencers, where we took a spectrum of influencers and we launched it like a movie. So we went very genre specific, and we said, what if we were to get, Rajiv Masand to review a new star coming and create buzz around this. So, sometimes you have to do these things where maybe it's not really brand ethos, but you also understand the business challenge of making certain low involvement categories, and you have to elevate them. And sometimes the route that you take and the influencers that you choose there play a very critical role.
What are the cons though? Like when you depend upon like influence of a human for your brand. Given the lines are so blurry between a brand and an influencer today, and they somehow crisscross, are there any stories to share? What to really take care of when you are choosing the brand ambassadors?
Esha, can I just add to your question?
Please add, yes.
Disrupt the proceedings a
For
bit.
sure.
Do we all remember Lalita ji of Surf? Was she an influencer?
Yes.
In a way, yes.
Therefore, my question to all the CMOs here, when was the last time you tried to create an influencer? Right? And therefore, to add to what Esha is saying, where do you take this influencer business from here?
You're saying what is the force behind influence is what you are coming at,
I'm
right?
sorry?
You're basically thinking what is the force? Like how does the creation really, what's the first step?
Exactly. I mean, brands create people, right? Not people creating brands. Why have we given up the power of the brand to the third person versus taking it back and saying, hey, I will create the influencer? Right? Why are your agencies being so dull and unimaginative to say, you know what, these guys are doing all the work, we'll
Help
go and
me.
pluck the fruits already there. Why aren't we
No,
not
fair
planting
enough.
the
I think,
trees?
Zohar, you have a point.
So I will take this point. So it is, and I would say that we do it dispassionately, and you need to understand, okay, we are CMOs, marketing is a KPI, but marketing without business and the finance KPI has to be seen in that light. As I said earlier, that influencer is a cheat code. It helps you to get Tom and Spawn really fast. You are able to enter in, I think so Tushar spoke that how retailers are able to, you build your channel partners, you are able to enter in more stores, you reduce the barrier. So influencer is a quick fix of the problem, but there are brands, for example, Tic Tac, we were associated with Ranveer Singh, but we moved forward, we created a beautiful film with elephants and escapism, and now we are without a celeb, and we are working with the content what we have. So that is, I think so, a way the brand decides, saying that do I need it or I don't need it. So that's something, is a life cycle which is there.
I'm just going to step in over here and say my biggest influencer is my consumer. Eventually that is my consumer. That is what
Yeah,
it
fair
is.
enough.
We wanted to make drinking water cool. So what we did, we went to Lollapalooza and we were the water brand over there. 5.5 lakh glasses of water were drunk in 2 days.
But it's also the treatment of usage of an opportunity, because I think all three of you are coming to that point that it's not just about shifting the power dynamics from the brand to the ambassador, it's about how you're using that opportunity. Any examples on the good treatment which really helped, apart from the example that you gave, Tushar, at Lola? Like anyone who has an example of a good treatment of a brand ambassador in terms of fitment, which sort of is not similar to the old playbooks of using a tagline.
So I will give one example is again, so I think so Kunal spoke about two passions in India. One is Bollywood and movies. There's a third passion which is music.
Yeah.
And when we had Tic Tac, of course, means Tic Tac, when we started the journey with Tic Tac, making Tic Tac big, we decided, and Gen Z are fanatic about music, so we use Yashraj Mukhate, which is the Gen Z music creator. We use the rattle of the Tic Tac box, and it blended in beautifully. So that's is something which you need to take where exactly your product fits in, the brand persona and the brand ethos which are there, if they fit in, it's something what you should take accordingly.
Okay. I love, Tushar, add in
I
please.
mean, the problem statement we had was that, water is the OG drink, but it's not a drink when you want to have fun. Hydration is not cool, people think of it as a core. So then who better than Deepika Padukone to step in over there and make drinking water fun? That's why we got her on board for that.
So it's also a lot of lateral thinking. It's also connection of other categories which could empower the TG that you're talking to, and not just the category in which you are playing. Yeah.
See, there's a different non-human influencer process. Okay, so when cameras took over phones, right? The iPhone was the first brand to talk about it, but we again in my earlier, we created for Samsung this incredible content which actually viral. So the other thing that I want to talk about is the power of the viral process on the internet, right? And we were just discussing, right, that the algorithm does not allow a branded content
Loves
to
the
travel
virality.
beyond a
Yeah.
certain level. And after your first 3 to 7%, you have to spend
push.
money in doing that. So the entire process of this juxtaposition of influencer along with the brand money, along with brand endorsement, is where this entire
Where the entirety comes in.
the plane starts flying.
Yeah, I think in interest of time, I'll also come to the closing with the last question. And while we are telling a lot of things that work in a playbook of an influencer, let's shift the tables. Let's be the influencers. So if I was to ask you to summarize that if you had the power to influence as a brand ambassador for your brand or otherwise, or be an influencer, actual influencer on the internet, what would be your style as a combination of the creators who exist? Like, I'll go first. If I was an influencer or a podcaster, I would combine the Nikhil Kamath and Kusha Kapila style. So I'll go with Nidhi, you first, because you've been quiet. So maybe you can take that one. Who are the, and also please tell why.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I think I'll also actually would say Nikhil Kamath, because I think he is asking some really pertinent questions and having some really insightful podcasts, and the fact that how he's using his personal brand to delve into interesting topics. Actually, the second one, someone I really appreciate and admire is Nancy Tyagi. I think
So
just
Nancy
the
Tyagi and a Nikhil Kamath combination.
yeah, because I think while one is all about just bringing in interesting insights to the table, the other one is just about grit and resilience. I think the combination of both is perfect.
Yeah, Kunal?
So I think I would go with one. I feel credibility is now rare in India, and I think Sachin Tendulkar brings that, right? I think best of all, I feel, and hence that's one. But then at the same time, I want an element of fun in it, and I love music, so I said, oh, Yashraj Mukhate is the right. So it's a combination of Sachin Tendulkar and Yashraj Mukhate.
Okay, so ahead.
Okay, so I will, of course, business is very important, so I'll start with Mr. Ferrero, who's a visionary.
True to your brand.
And of course has built loud brands across the globe, so I will go with that along with fun of Yashraj Mukhate and the energy of Ranveer Singh. So that would be my style.
You all have a chance at being each other's co-brand ambassadors. We have a Sachin, we have a Ranveer. Tushar, what about
I'll
you?
take everybody on the panel. I think the energy has been excellent. Don't you guys think so? Right? I think all of
We all are influencers.
all of us are influencers, and I think it's been fantastic. So I'll name all of us. Yeah.
You want our energies when you
Absolutely,
become
that's what you want.
Okay, Shweta, how about you?
I'm partial to humor. I think humor cuts across categories, and humor can kind of flow into every kind of brand. So I think I would pick a combination of Cyrus Brocha. I think he puts out amazing content on his podcasts. He does an amazing job of talking about serious things in a very, very irreverent fashion. So Cyrus Brocha and Rahul Subramaniam, these are two big
That's a cool choice.
comedians. So, I mean, Cyrus Brocha is not a comedian, but he is extremely funny. So, yes, Cyrus Brocha and Rahul Subramaniam, I think humor can cut through anything. So that would be my choice.
What about you, Manis? Any old school favorites?
I've been itching to say this. Can you repeat the question?
It's okay. So we want you to tell what are your two top creators that will be a combination that you're going to be as.
I would just go for a virtual influencer completely.
What, like an avatar of yours?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where I have control, right? And that's what I've been kind of talking about. And I think that if I do that, I can actually give the brand full control, and I can have multiple personalities coming at different times. The number of avatars that I can create. I mean, look, now this is the age of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, all these buzzwords that none of us understand pretty much, right? But the fact is, AI is fascinating. The amount of work that's happening on AI is absolutely incredible, right? And scary. And therefore, the best influencer now
Digital avatar.
is what I will create.
Okay, perfect. I think with that we come to a close of our very interesting panel. And if I was to summarize, we are saying that influence is not so mysterious. It can be demystified. The rules and the playbook remains the same. Content is still the king. And you just have to find out the right content that talks to your audience. With that, we close it and over to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's give a huge round of applause.